Welcome back to Ijimi Media, your source for weekly news and some of the most important stories from Africa and the diaspora. Let's get into it. We begin in Zambia, where voters have gone to the polls to choose their next president. The election is largely centered around two candidates, current President Hakainde Hichilema and opposition leader Brian Mundubile. As of now, the official results have not been released, but Mundubile has already claimed victory, a move that's added a lot of uncertainty to an already tense election. The voting process itself was temporarily suspended because of violence, although polling eventually resumed. The opposition immediately criticized the delay, warning that prolonged uncertainty could create opportunities for the results to be manipulated. Now, with Mundubile claiming victory before the official results are announced, tensions are likely to remain high while Zambians wait. President Hichilema came to power in 2021 after running for president 6 times. Before entering politics, he was a businessman, and during his presidency, he's overseen negotiations with the IMF and has led efforts to stabilize Zambia's economy. But economic growth doesn't always mean people are better off. Many Zambians continue to struggle with the high cost of living, and Hichilema has faced criticism over his government's treatment of political opponents. His challenger is Brian Mundubile, who's a lawyer and former government minister. But for some voters, his political background represents an older generation of leadership that they've become frustrated with. That leaves Zambia with a difficult question. Regardless of who wins, can the next government turn the country's natural resources and economic growth into real opportunities for ordinary people? Zambia is one of Africa's major copper producers, but people want to see that wealth translates into jobs, better education, infrastructure, and a genuine lower cost of living. So while the election is about choosing a president, the bigger issue is just what that president can actually deliver. Next, we return to South Africa, where tensions over immigration continue to grow. South Africa is now asking several African countries, including Malawi, Nigeria, and Ethiopia, to reimburse the government for the costs of deporting undocumented migrants. So what's the bill? It's around $18 million. South African officials say the government spent far more than expected on deportations. The country had budgeted roughly $3 million for immigrant-related deportations, but transportation and other costs pushed spending to more than 6 times that amount. The governments of the countries being asked to pay have not publicly responded to the request. But really, this is more than just about money. South Africa is increasingly finding itself at odds with some of its African neighbors over immigration. In theory, immigration should be an issue that African countries work together to manage. Instead, we're seeing more confrontation, demands, and political tension. And this matters because we've talked about xenophobia in South Africa before. The difficult part is that this isn't only coming from politicians. There's genuine resentment among some South Africans who believe immigrants are taking jobs or accessing government services. That makes the problem much harder to solve. History has shown us that when economic frustrations are directed at immigrants, the consequences can be serious, causing discrimination and attacks on entire communities. The challenge for South Africa is convincing people that immigrants are not the root cause of problems like unemployment, poverty, or even a struggling economy. Those problems mentioned existed before many of these immigrants even arrived. If South Africa and its neighbors cannot find a way to address immigration without turning against each other, this could become an even bigger source of tension across the continent. So we'll keep you updated as this develops. Finally, we end on some good news from the African creative industry. Nigerian businesswoman and philanthropist Mo Abudu has announced the opening of Ebony Life Place London, which is set to become the UK's first cinema and cultural hub dedicated exclusively to African and Black films. The space is expected to officially open in October. Mo Abudu is best known as the founder of Ebony Life TV, a media company that produces and distributes African-focused entertainment across Africa and the diaspora. And this new project is important because Africa's creative industries are often reduced to one thing: Afrobeats. But African filmmakers, actors, writers, and producers are creating stories across every genre imaginable. The problem is that they often have to rely on Western companies to distribute those stories and connect them with international audiences. A dedicated cinema and cultural hub could help change that. Instead of African filmmakers simply producing content for someone else to distribute, projects like this create more opportunities for African and Black creatives to build their own institutions and audiences. Of course, one cinema hub isn't going to transform the entire industry, but it's a step towards something bigger, an African creative industry with the infrastructure to tell, distribute, and profit from its own stories. And that's something worth watching. That's it for this week. Tune in next time as we continue bringing you stories from across Africa and the diaspora. If there's a topic you want us to cover, let us know in the comments. Our goal here is simple as always: make information about our communities accessible to everyone from the perspective of the people we report on. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and support the channel, and I'll see you next week.